Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to pay tribute to the dearly departed Cedric Benson, talk Bears preseason game number 2, and I think we may dig into this Cubs curse on the road. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. We are getting pretty close to the season opening, and there's just a month or so away. So head on over to icehogs.com, pick up a hat, shirt, jersey, season tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, my friend, how have you been?
Good. Just played some street hockey today for the first time in a long time, and boy, did it feel good.
Yeah, I saw you putting some moves on there. I saw it on the Twitter.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But that goalie, one of the guys I was playing with, he was really, really good. Really, really good. So I was lucky to beat him on that shot. We didn't beat him on a lot of shots, but I was lucky that one. It's funny, when I shot that, I didn't think it went in, so I kind of put my head down like, oh, he got it. Then suddenly it was in the back of the net. So we got a piece of it, but it ended up going in the back of the net. But yeah, I mean, it just feels really good just to like shoot a ball or a puck at a net, like a regulation sized net. It's one of those great feelings. It's like going out and hitting a baseball, just not even in a game, just going out and hitting one. That's that same feeling of when you go out and shoot a puck.
So my best friend, he's got a son that's exactly 6 months to the day younger than my daughter. So he's about to be 4.5, and he practices at the Blackhawks training facility. He's already an excellent skater. And my buddy, I came over there and helped him in the garage for, I think it was for Christmas. They put up basically this like tarp with a goal in it in their garage so he could shoot slap shots in their garage.
Oh, that's awesome. My friends did something similar to that down the block when I was a kid. Hey, maybe we'll see this kid grow up and be in the NHL someday.
I know. I'm telling him now. I'm like, I already want tickets. I'm like, tickets for me.
When he makes his NHL debut, you got to be there.
Yeah, I'm like, I've known your dad for most of his life. I'm like, tickets.
Yeah, you better be there, front row.
Yeah. So, I wanted to start with Cubs because I feel like there's a lot of venom that we can speak here, but I don't know. I sort of changed my mind after the news we got today about former Bears running back Cedric Benson.
Yeah.
If you don't know already, he was involved in a motorcycle accident today, and he passed away. And I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about him as a player and his time in Chicago, and how his most productive years were after he left the team. And but still, he was a Bear for a number of years, and
he was on that Super Bowl team.
And you just want to celebrate life, and so rest in peace to Cedric Benson.
Yeah, I think my number one memory of Cedric Benson as a Bear was in the NFC Championship game 2006. It was the fourth quarter, about 11 minutes to go. The Bears were up I think it was 25-14 or something like that. And he punched it in the end zone, and that put the game on ice. I mean, the Bears were pretty much on track to win that game anyway, but that touchdown, I would say, sealed the deal.
My favorite Cedric Benson moment, and this is a personal one, it won't relate to anybody else, but um, I love to go to the NFL draft. And before, or for a number of years, I lived in Philadelphia, and that was when the NFL draft was in New York every year. So Philadelphia is about the distance to New York as Chicago to Milwaukee. So it's a hour and a half, depends on traffic. So it's not a bad drive. So I would drive up there, or take the train or whatever. And one year I brought a buddy of mine with that. It was his first time going. And that was the year Cedric Benson was drafted. And he was there at the draft. And I happened to run into him. He like popped out from behind a curtain and signed a couple autographs. And I got an autograph on, those like gumball machine football helmets.
Mm-hmm.
I got an autograph on a Bears one of those.
Oh, very nice.
And it's funny because he had to put his initials because he couldn't sign it across it because it's so small and it's so curved. So, he just put his initials on there, and he shook my hand. So I was like, be great. And he's like, I will. So he lied to me, but still, you don't like to see anybody pass away, and especially at such a young age.
Yeah, only 36 years old. And, in my opinion, any player that once played for your team or, played, no matter how good or bad they are, when you hear something like that, it's always really sad. Cedric Benson, like, he brings back some good memories, no matter what. I think of that Super Bowl team that he was on. I think about that NFC Championship game. All those memories come flooding back when I hear about Cedric Benson, and it's so sad the way his life ended at only 36 years old. But he'll certainly never be forgotten.
No, he won't. You just hope that his family finds their peace and in this tough time.
Yeah, 60 yards, 24 rushing attempts, and a touchdown he got in that NFC Championship game. I know when you think running back in that NFC Championship game, you think of Thomas Jones. I mean, that was an incredible game by him, but Cedric Benson was definitely a part of that game.
Yeah, not to in our eulogy here rave about Thomas Jones, but man, Thomas Jones, loved him.
He might have been like, I guess I'd say the most, how do I say it? I don't want to say most underrated Bear, but maybe underappreciated just because he came up so big in those big situations, especially in that NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because I feel like that's a performance by a particular Chicago athlete in a big game that doesn't get talked about a lot. I mean, look, when you think of all those Blackhawk playoff runs, you think of specific goals that Kane scored, or you think of Kyle Hendricks's gem to win the pennant. You think of all these things. Jeff Blum hitting a game-winning home run for the White Sox in 2005. But there's not a lot of love given to Thomas Jones, who was basically the offense that day.
And did any running back in the history of football have biceps like him?
I don't think so. Isn't he an actor now?
I don't know.
I thought he was like acting or something.
I don't know. I have to look that up because I've sort of lost track of what happened to him.
And the other thing about Thomas Jones is like, he did his thing for the Bears. He was a Pro Bowler in his career, but Matt Forte came along right after that. And Matt Forte is one of the best running backs the Bears ever had, obviously behind Walter Payton and like a Gale Sayers. But I mean, of this generation, it's by far Matt Forte, yes?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then that speaks to how good Matt Forte is, that he just overshadowed Thomas Jones, because that Matt Forte was a steal. I think it was his second round pick. He was a steal.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at Thomas Jones's career numbers. He had over 10,000 rushing yards in his career. He rushed for 68 touchdowns, and he caught 3, over 2,000 receiving yards. guy was a damn good football player.
So, yeah, while we're talking, the Cubs are playing the Pirates in the last of this 10-game road trip, and they're up 2-0. They've got runners at second and third, nobody out. Do they bring anybody home?
I'm going to say no.
I want to agree with you, but I'm going to say they bring home one.
Okay, so like on a chopper to the shortstop or to second base, basically.
Yeah, slow roller, and then somebody hits a no double play after that. So we'll find out. But yeah, I mean, I just want to say rest in peace to Cedric Benson.
Right on, man. Right on. Bear for life, baby.
Always. So while we have football in the mind, I want to talk about the Bears Giants preseason game number 2 and a little bit of NFL stuff. You okay with that?
Sure.
So I think I can talk about it now. Is Friday during the game, I broadcast the game live with Big Dave for a new sports app called Hot Mic.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, so Big Dave got hired on with one of his co-hosts from Bulls Outsiders, and they needed somebody to fill in. It was fantastic. So the app is really cool. So it's in beta testing now. You can't get it, but it's supposed to launch fairly soon. So if you don't want to listen to Joe Buck or whoever is annoying is announcing, you can pick the game that you're watching, and there'll be, once it's all said and done, there'll be multiple different broadcasts.
I'm shocked that's legal, but that's awesome.
And so you can, and then the coolest thing is, so what's people will do it with the radio broadcast, but what's the big downside of that?
That's 2 runs, baby. 2 runs in. I was wrong.
Hold on. I'm still. Oh, there we go.
Yep,
that's how much of a time delay we're on.
Oh,
and it's funny because that's the answer to the question is when you listen to the radio broadcast, there's a lag from the TV. They're not in sync. So this app is you push a button, it hears what's in the background of the TV and then syncs the audio up to the app, and then you mute your TV. And then you can listen to, one of several different broadcasts for that game. And so the idea is they'll have probably maybe they'll have a Spanish broadcast or, an analytics type broadcast or one that's just super homers, whatever, just, a different niche. And then you can listen to it like that. So Dave and I did it, and it was a blast. It was a lot of fun.
That just sounds like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. So it was thanks Big Dave for bringing me in there. And, I know that the CEO and the head of talent acquisition was listening to this podcast because they were talking about it. So if you guys are listening, I think we would like to do it. So just saying, just putting that out there.
Please.
But it was really cool. It was they put us in a studio. They had Dave and I were on TV. We were just watching the game, and we didn't have to do like play-by-play like traditional play-by-plays. We just kind of made jokes and talked about what was happening, and then we had a best dressed on the sideline for the Bears players because none of the starters played, so we were seeing who was the best dressed standing on the sidelines.
Yeah, I think you guys needed to entertain yourselves during that game.
So yeah, that game, not a good game. But I mean, here's the thing. None of the starters played.
No.
None of the starters played. It was all guys that are trying to make this team. You had your second, most of the times third team defensive linemen going against their starting offensive line, which is a solid offensive line in New York. And so they're not getting pressure, and the quarterback has all day, and that just starts the ball rolling. And then, you've got You've got your number 6 wide receiver out there as your leading receiver. So what, when these Lions fans and Packers fans are at their keyboard typing away, none of the starters played, and it's preseason. You chill out.
What is with Lions fans this year and just talking endless garbage?
I think that's just their MO. I think it's in their water system.
Like I think the Lions could actually be a decent team this year. But when they talk trash, they're like, you lost a playoff game last year. You haven't won a playoff game in a decade. They have, by the way. And other stuff like that. Like, are you going to sit there as a fan of a team who has one playoff win since the merger, that has more 0-16 seasons than Super Bowl appearances, and you really think you could talk crap about that?
The Lions fans, man. I mean, that team in your lifetime, they had their fans showing up in brown paper bags over their heads because they were so bad.
Well, it's like there's two types of Lions fans. There are the types of Lions fans who are like, yeah, we know we suck. We're loyal, but, we suck. And I respect those. I respect those a lot. I have a friend who's like that. But the ones that think they could go around talking shit like that, really? You're gonna make fun of a team that lost a playoff game when you literally have one playoff win in 50 years? And your last and only playoff game in this era was in like the early 90s? Like, really? I'll give them due credit when they accomplish something, but until then, sit down.
Yeah, and here's the thing is I fully support any fan that rides and dies with their team through the good times and the bad times. And and during the bad times, you just take your lumps and you go on. But Lions fans, they just keep talking trash, even though they're in the bad times for eternity.
Right. I mean, if they want to be eternally hopeful for their team, great. They want to show up in droves and cheer them on, good or bad. Fantastic. I'm a Cubs fan. I know what that's like. That's good. But talking crap, making fun of any team for not winning a playoff game, really?
Glass houses.
When's the last time they've won a division title? The early 2000s?
Yeah, with Wayne Fontes as their head coach.
Right. So
the last time they won the division, they had a head coach who's now dead.
Yikes.
I
mean, come on.
But, there's some things to take away from this game. And one of them is, I think, Riley Ridley and Javon Wims looked good. And I don't see any way that the two of them don't make the playoff or make the final roster.
Yeah, Javon Wims is really the only guy of note that I paid attention to, and I was half paying attention anyway. I was at a bar with some friends, and I was too busy raging about the Cubs. But yeah, he looks good. I'm like you. I am pretty confident he's going to make the roster. I hope he makes the roster. I think he deserves to make the roster. So yeah, that's one thing I could say that I legit took away from that game, because there isn't much else.
Yeah, I mean, Clifton Duck is a guy that undrafted, but he played from a small school, undrafted, and he's showing a lot of heart, not a lot of speed. He undercut one, caught that, and then Dave and I were laughing because we're like, that guy, he's got to go in there and he can't talk about how he got caught from behind. He's got to hype up the guy that caught him. I got caught by Usain Bolt. This guy, I got caught by the fastest man on earth. Hype that guy up so it doesn't take away from you. And but he played tough. And that was a positive. It
was a good
team.
play. The interception was a very good play.
Oh yeah, it was good coverage, good cut on the route. Great catch, because it wasn't an easy catch. So that was a great play, and he had some other good plays. My only concern with him is a little undersized, but he's somebody to watch as like a bottom of the roster kind of guy that makes it. A guy that I liked in training camp and in the first game, and I was like, in the minute I said a positive thing about him, he just goes into suckitude, is John Franklin III. He had some penalties, he had blown coverage, missed tackle, and I was like, oh no, that is not what you want to see.
Nice jinx right there, baby.
I know, it really was. It was like literally as soon as Dave and I praised him, is he gets a penalty call and then had like 4 plays in a row where they were bad. And I was like, are you kidding me? like I'm just going to talk about how he sucks and see how that works.
Well, I did something similar that night, but it was in the Cubs game. I'll explain it later, but yeah, it's all about the jinx.
Nick Kwiatkowski did not look good. Looked real slow out there. Yeah, I think it might be a tough uphill for him to make this squad, depending on how some of the other linebackers look, because you're not going to keep a ton of inside linebackers. And although I like the guy's knowledge of the system, I would rather have somebody that's out there faster that can be a bigger playmaker.
Yeah, I think the only leg he has really right now is that he's made rosters in the past, but that might be a whole performance-based thing at this point.
Right. Vaughters, who is he's competing to be one of the outside linebackers, looked good, had the strip sack, heads up play. I really liked what he was showing me. And I think after, so I mean, obviously Khalil Mack makes this team. Obviously,
wow, you think?
Yeah, obviously Leonard Floyd makes this team. It's barring an injury, you have to assume Aaron Lynch is going to make this team. So they're probably going to keep 5 edge rushers, maybe 6. So those last 2 to 3 guys that are competing for that roster, you've got Isaiah Irving, you've got Betts, you've got Kylie Fitz, you've got Vaughters. I think he's got a good of shot at anybody to make the roster and beat out those other guys, because I didn't see a lot from anybody else.
Yeah, well, to be fair, neither did I.
All of the backup offensive tackles stunk. And if I'm the Bears, I'm watching the waiver wires for a swing tackle, because I was not happy with any of them.
You were paying more close attention than I was. Keep in mind, I was in a bar, so...
I was talking about the game as it happened, so it was extra eyes. And it was funny because I made notes. I was like, a big thumbs down to Elliott Fry, and lo and behold, today he gets cut.
Yeah, there's I hate this whole thing. I really do. The Bears, one thing that I think is driving me really crazy here is how the Bears are approaching this and wanting like a specific age type player, like looking to improve development. Shouldn't the number one goal here to just be find someone who could do the damn job? Isn't that what's most important? I don't care if he's 25. I don't care if he's 45. Find someone who could kick a ball between the uprights, and whoever's the best at it gets it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. If I really understand the point when you're like, we want to have a young kicker that can be with us for a long time and, the grow with us, et cetera, et cetera. I completely get that sentiment, but you are a team that your only hole is the kicking spot. So at this point, just solve it for this year. Worry about next year. If you want to develop a guy, put a guy on your practice squad. Put a kicker on your practice squad and work with him. kick in your practices. Work with him and develop that way. Sign a veteran kicker. Like what you did this year was really embarrassing. And what's even worse is you get it down to two guys, Eddie Pinheiro and Elliott Fry, and you waive one of them, and then you immediately come out and say that you're still looking. So that means the guy that won your kicking competition internally is still probably not going to be the kicker on your opening day roster. So what kind of message does that send about your team that you put all these people through this and then you're just going to go with an outside candidate anyway?
Right. So why are you limiting yourself?
Yeah, I just, it's silly to me. So I feel for Eddie Pinheiro, and I think he's got a strong leg. And honestly, I hope that in the couple weeks before the season starts, I hope that him being the only kicker, not having to worry about a competition, just going out there and doing his thing, he starts kicking the shit out of the ball. And I really hope that is because I don't want to waste a draft pick trading for a guy. If necessary, I would totally pick up a Matt Bryant. But again, you're going to have to pay him more. And you hope that he's been staying in shape because he hasn't done anything in a while, but you assume he has. But still, he's also 40-something years old. So you hope that Pinheiro spends this time and just works his ass off and having the no competition pressure and having all the reps, makes him really step up.
Yeah, I don't want to root against Eddie Pinheiro. And like you said, I hope he does become something, but do you want to bank on that right now? I wouldn't.
No, I'm not banking on it. I think if I'm a betting man and I have to put a bet down, I've got a name that I'm going with, and that's Joey Sly that we saw last week.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have been talking about him.
And you feel, because, all right, apparently there's a lot of teammates on the Panthers that are saying, that they don't see it as Gano is being handed the job, as they think that there should be a competition, and nobody handed a job, and Gano is coming off of an injury and hasn't kicked that well in the preseason, but he's a veteran and he's a Pro Bowler, and hasn't had a bad NFL season at all. So, one of those guys is not going to make the roster. You're not carrying two kickers.
No.
The problem is that there are several teams that are kicker hungry, as we saw, because there was a market that opened up for the other Ravens kicker, and so Sly is they're gonna trade. Somebody's gonna trade for him.
Yeah, because don't they still have Justin Tuck or whatever his name is? Oh no, that's Baltimore.
That's Baltimore. That's why they traded the other guy. This one they have Graham Gano.
Right.
And so,
sorry, brain fart right there.
Yeah, so Joe, no problem. I have them all the time. Joey Sly is going to get traded because they have a really good kicker. So he's going to get moved some one way or another. And if you're the Bears, here's your options: is you keep your fingers crossed that a kicker gets cut and you have the opportunity to bring them right in, or you be proactive and you trade. And Minnesota set the market. That 5th round pick is what you're going to have to give up for a kicker.
Yep.
And that's a high price to pay for a kicker.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Especially one that has no NFL experience.
Yeah. Why couldn't if Cody Parkey just been the guy he was in Miami.
Right?
Because, I mean, that's the thing. Cody Parkey was good before he came to Chicago.
Yep, he was. That's why we gave him. We thought we were solving the kicker issue by giving him a contract and bringing him in and giving him good money. Like, we thought we were solving the problem, and we made the problem so much worse.
You know what I said on Twitter yesterday? The Cody Parkey, the way it all went down, made Bears fans completely forget the Connor Barth debacle.
Yeah, I saw that. It's true. It is really true. And here's the thing: is Cody Parkey is going to leave a bad taste in everybody's mouth for seasons to come.
Mm-hmm.
Fans, whoever the kicker is that wins the competition for the Bears, or winds up being the kicker on opening day, he's going to have to live with it. Nobody's going to be the sole kicker for a team and not miss a field goal all year. You're going to miss at least one. Once you miss that, everyone's going to turn you into Cody Parkey, and you're going to have to carry that burden. Fans are going to be nervous every time you you're going to kick a kick.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a burden that Cody Parkey created.
He's getting guaranteed money though, right? The next few years.
He's getting some. He had a signing bonus, and so
right.
There's dead money that's involved in that contract,
right?
That we have to eat every year.
I mean, that's the thing with Cody Parkey is even if he doesn't have a job this year, he's still going to be making a crap ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, he got paid a lot of money to be the Bears kicker, and unless there's an injury in the middle of the season, I don't see anybody picking up Cody Parkey.
Not right now, no. Whatever happened to Mike Nugent? Remember when we had him for like the last few games in 2017? Whatever happened to that guy?
I don't know what happened to him, to be honest with you.
Because I'm not saying go out and get Mike Nugent by any means, but I remember in those few games he played, he actually did a good job.
Didn't he have injury, like a lot of injuries?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because they got, what was it, Cairo? Was that his name for like a game or two, and then he got hurt?
Yeah. Yep, Cairo.
And it's funny,
I saw somebody bring up Cairo's name again as a potential candidate for the Bears kicking job. Like, really?
No.
Really?
No.
So here's the names I'm hearing thrown around: is Joey Sly, obviously. Cole Headland, who's the second kicker in Indianapolis. Matt Wright, who's the backup kicker for Pittsburgh. Tristan Vizcaíno, who's the backup kicker in Cincinnati, and Matt Bryant. Those are the names that are being thrown around. And, there's still Eddie Pinheiro. So I think one of those 2, 4, 5, 6 names is going to be your kicker.
Yeah, it could be. I'm looking at Connor Barth's stats right now. Just because, we've been talking about him. It's another case of before he came to the Bears, he was pretty solid from 2010 to 2015. He was with the Buccaneers and the Denver Broncos. He only played like 5 games with Denver. I think he was filling in, but he wasn't fantastic, but he was solid enough. And then when he came to the Bears, 2016, kicked 78.3%, which, you'd say that's pretty mediocre, right?
Right.
And then his last year, 10 games, 68.8%. That's bad.
Yeah, so it's, I don't care who it is. I just want to see a solid kicker that's going to be able to kick a clutch field goal from a solid distance, where you feel like, hey, if we need a 57-yarder, we feel confident that this guy can at least give us a good chance at that.
Yeah.
And Joey Sly has shown that.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if they try to make a go at him. I would not be.
I wouldn't either. Yeah, I would not be shocked at all.
The other funny thing is, too, you've been cursed the past several years after having the privilege over a decade of having like the most efficient kicker in football. Like, it's just amazing. I think about it all the time.
Yep.
Man.
The only other Bears note I had was this week in practice. There were 3 fights.
Yeah, and there's one in particular that really annoyed me.
I guess the Kyle Long one.
Yeah. Can I just get my feelings out right now?
Yep.
I'm really sick of that guy's shit. I think he's a fantastic football player. He makes all the difference when he's on the field, but I am sick of that guy. Just the immaturity, doing stuff like that. Look, if it was a little scuffle, you exchange some words, that's going to happen. That's fine. But he literally ripped a helmet off a guy. You could break somebody's neck by doing that.
Yep. He gets way carried away.
And wasn't it his father, the Hall of Famer, that said he needs to calm down?
And his brother.
Yeah.
Father and his brother both said he needs to calm down.
And those two are very like Howie Long is one of the most likable football players out there. I don't know what he was like when he played, but right now I really respect the guy.
And I heard a interview with Howie Long, and I think it was before the playoff game, and they were asking about the differences in personality between the two brothers. And I forgot what he said about Chris Long, but then he was praising him, talking, about him and his work ethic. And then he said, Kyle's the one that you want him having your back if you get no barroom brawl. I was like, I guess that speaks volumes.
Yeah,
that was the compliment your dad could come up for you.
And look, like I said, I think he's a great football player. I mean, I love him as a football player. And, he shows a lot of fire and passion on the field. And that's all fine and great. But the immature stuff, like ripping helmets off your teammates and, getting into legit fist fights with your teammates, I'm so sick of that. I really am. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm okay with there being scuffles in practice because
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen, and it's also, guys are competing for jobs, but it shows that guys are being fiery. I get it. I'm okay with that. Like the Javon Wims, Prince Amukamara one, like that went further than I would like, but both guys shook hands. Javon Wims was forced to apologize, and both guys moved on. It
wasn't a big deal in the end.
Yeah. I mean, he punched Prince Amukamara after, a rough and tumble play, but, he apologized. They moved on. Everybody's fine. And Prince Amukamara spoke glowingly of the football player Javon Wims has turned into since last year. So those are ones you're like, I get it. Let's move on. The Kyle Long one is just a lot more troubling. You're right. That is one that you can't have that kind of behavior. And I know some of those 80s great Bears teams had that kind of attitude, but
this is now, man. This is a different era.
It's a different era, and it's a different team, and it's a different style of football, and that just doesn't fly anymore.
No, and Nagy's created a culture against that. And didn't Nagy even say he was pretty pissed about the whole thing too?
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I mean, he should be as a head coach when somebody rips a helmet off somebody and risks breaking their neck. I think the coach would have every right to be pissed off.
Yeah, and the injury thing, like even if it's a guy that's not going to make this roster, is still that's a person out there. And it's a guy competing for a job, and you want him to have every opportunity to have his health and his opportunity to earn a living. You can't be trying to injure him.
No. And I just want Kyle Long to realize that kind of thing just shouldn't be accepted. And he hasn't participated in football activity since, at least not that I saw. Remember, he was kicked out of practice.
He was kicked out of practice, and then I think they had a walkthrough, and then he didn't play in the game because he's a starter, and he didn't make the flight. Right.
So, yeah, I really, really did not like that.
So yeah, that was a bad one. And, other than that, I've really liked the way practices have gone.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea that Matt Nagy had like a complete scrimmage, and then didn't play as starters in the game, because you know what, in a scrimmage, guys should be looking out for the safety and well-being of their teammates. So they're not trying to make big tackles and big hits. They're just, wrapping up, taking a guy down. It's much more controlled environment to have guys playing, and you get the same benefit as you do playing them in the preseason game, where somebody that's trying to make a name for himself is gunning for you. I think that's a really smart idea.
Yeah.
And I appreciate Matt Nagy for that.
Me too.
And somebody asked him about it because, his mentor, Andy Reid, doesn't do that. He plays his players in the preseason. And Matt really danced around that question nicely. And he was like, every team's different and every situation's different. And Andy does this. We have a different team. With a different philosophy, and that's how we want to do things. And, so that's great that he's learned from Andy Reid, but he is not, things that he doesn't agree with, he's changed.
Completely copying another coaching style isn't going to win you anything. You can be influenced, you can implement some things, but you got to create your own philosophies as well.
Yeah, Matt Nagy's a guy that knew how he wanted to do things, and then he was brought up by Andy Reid, and then he taught him the ropes, gave him opportunities, and let him shine and be the coach that he's going to be. So he might be under the Andy Reid tree, but he's his own specimen. He's his own type of plant.
Absolutely.
So yeah, 0-2 preseason. I don't care, because guess what? Guess what they were after 2 games last year in the preseason?
0-2.
0-2.
You know what the Detroit Lions were in 2018 in the preseason?
4-0.
Exactly.
Preseason means nada.
The only other thing I wanted to add from the last preseason game, I really hope Mitch Trubisky doesn't get hurt. Can I just say that?
Yeah, I was saying that too. I get that that your 2 backups know the system, and they know the playbook, and it's not like you bring somebody in there and they have to learn the system. But good grief, it would be nice to have a good quarterback if your quarterback goes down.
Like, I think they could live with Chase Daniel if it was like 1 game, but you don't want multiple games of Mitch Trubisky getting hurt.
No, you don't, because that's a tough one to swallow. And, I said some bad things about Tyler Bray, because, what's been great about your general manager right now is he's added top end talent and then churned the bottom of the roster with guys until you find somebody that fits what you're trying to do. And that's been fantastic. So I'm like, why do they still have Tyler Bray? Because I don't think he's very good. But we saw some nice throws from him in this last preseason game. So I'm hoping that shows that he's had some growth and improvement as a young player, that it would be cool to see him grow and then be able to be the backup going forward, and then part ways with one of the more expensive backups in the league.
Yeah, I just pray that it doesn't come down to that. The only time I want to see those two in a game is if it's like week 17, the Bears have everything locked up and it's a meaningless game. But, again, like if it's middle of the season and Trubisky's hurting and you're not playing a big opponent, then okay, you can get by with it. But if it's more than 2 games, ugh. I'll always love Chase Daniel, though, for winning a game on Thanksgiving for us. Just going to say that.
Yeah. It wasn't a beautiful one, but it was a win.
It was a win, yeah. He didn't do anything to, like, he threw a few touchdown passes, which was good. He didn't, like, win you the game, but he didn't lose it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm looking forward to more of the games. I want to see some of these younger players step up because I think for the first time in a long time, we actually have depth at positions where guys that don't make this roster are going to be able to find jobs elsewhere. We're already starting to see it with players like John Jenkins, John Anderson, Dontrell Inman. I guess he got cut today. There's been a bunch of guys that the Bears have moved on with because they can't make the roster, and they've gone elsewhere and still been able to find roster spots. And that talks about the depth of the Bears. So I want to see some of these young players, especially some of the undrafted tight ends, the defensive backs. I want to see some of those guys really step up and somebody take the job and grab it and win it. And not leave it up to chances. It's just actually to take over and prove that you deserve to be on this roster. So should we move on and talk Cubs?
Let's do it.
So last we talked, we knew that this was going to be a tough road trip, 10 games against two tough opponents and an opponent you should just be beating up on. And the first series was a 4-gamer against Cincinnati, which is tough because it's 4 games. It's tough because Cincinnati has just really had your number this year. Mm-hmm. And you got the split 2-2. And I was okay with that.
Especially after the way they came back and won that last one.
Right. So I'm okay with that. So then looking forward, we had 3 games against Philadelphia, 3 games against Pittsburgh. And pardon my French, the Cubs shit the bed against the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah.
Just diarrhea all over the place.
Well, like game 1 was really frustrating because you wasted a 14K performance from Jose Quintana.
I just want to talk about the performance that Quintana had in that game and the performance that Quintana had for the last 8 starts. Mm-hmm. Is he has been great. And this one was absolutely phenomenal. You struck out 14 guys in 6 innings.
Yeah, that's hard to do. I mean, it's impressive to do 14 in 7-8 innings, but 6?
Yeah, it was fantastic. 1 run, and you actually score. Well, sorry, your offense struggles a bit, and the bullpen comes in and just, which was the theme of this whole series.
Let's also, before we get into what I really want to talk about from that series, let's also take a moment and look at Yu Darvish. Because Yu Darvish pitched a gem on Thursday night.
That might have been Yu Darvish's one of his best performances ever.
Oh yeah, and he should have started the 8th. If you want my opinion, he should have been out there in the 8th inning.
7 innings, 4 hits, 0 earned runs, 10 strikeouts, 0 walks. Mm-hmm. That is a hell of a game. Especially for all those people that should have kept Jake Arrieta, Jake Arrieta is done for the season.
Yeah, and his ERA was higher, I believe, when he was done.
And Yu Darvish is throwing BBs out there.
Yeah. And this isn't just his only good performance as of late. Look at all the other good performances he's had since July.
So you absolutely wasted a gem performance. You were up 5-0.
Opinion. I need your opinion.
The bullpen is dog shit.
Yeah. Well, it's hard when so much of it is hurt, but you're still correct.
Yeah, I mean, even guys that we've come to rely on, I'm looking at you, Rowan Wick, just couldn't get the job done. And I don't know. The way that game ended and giving up a grand slam to stupid Bryce Harper just made me violently ill.
Some of the blame that night, though, also does have to go to the middle infielders.
That's true. It's absolutely true.
It was a collective blowing of chunks.
The defense in this road trip has not been very good.
No, and the funny thing is that while it's overall been really bad, it's also made some really nice plays. It's just where's that balance?
There isn't a balance. I mean, I guess the balance was it yesterday when Bryant had 2 errors and then made up for it with a home run?
I thought John Lester was going to go to third base and just strangle him.
And here's another opinion: is Anthony Rizzo needs to start hitting home runs more often. I know he hit one today. He needs to hit more home runs.
So I talked about this on Climbing the Ivy. I want to talk about it with you just to kind of see if you agree or disagree on this. So one thing that I mentioned about his lack of power, because Bruce Levine brought it up on the radio last week, talking about how Rizzo is going to need to rest like every whatever days just because of his history of back problems, his, just getting older. And while I believe a lot of the lack of power is just him playing for contact a lot of the time and not selling out, I can't help but wonder if his back may also contribute to that.
It's possible. I mean, if you have a sore back, even if it's just sore, where you can still do things that, I could tell you when you hit 40 years old, you will start having tight back, and sometimes you just get out of bed and it's just sore. Even if it's not injured, you know it's going to be fine. It just, man, you're ginger through the day you still do the things you're going to do, but you do it slower and ease into them because, there's some pain there. So there's a good possibility that Anthony Rizzo knows that, like, who else is going to play first base right now if he's injured and if he takes days off?
Normally it'd be Victor Caratini, but you're going to need Victor Caratini with Contreras out. And if you put Caratini there and you have Lucroy, your backup catcher is now Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah. Yep. And so that's a possibility. I mean, that's a real possibility, is because backs are tough. Backs are real tough. I mean, we've talked about hamstrings, how they're real tough and they come back. Back issues never go away.
No.
And so you really hope that there's not some sort of back problem that's causing this power. I couldn't tell you. But you hope that that's not the situation, because if it is, that creates long-term issues, because he's, of your core veterans, he's one of the old men comparatively.
Yeah, I mean, 30 years old, but yes, I know exactly what you're saying. Here's another thing that's interesting. I'm sorry, you're going to say something. Go ahead first.
I was just saying, is 30 years old is that when you start to, that's the peak, and then you start going down from there.
Yeah, it's a turning point.
Yeah, and you're already a big guy. Like he's not a little guy. He's a big guy, and back problems, and you worry that the descent might be quicker than you like.
Yeah, hopefully not. Here's another thing I pointed out. So he just hit home run number 23 on the season just a few moments ago. Now, we've seen Rizzo be that guy who will hit a lot of home runs in bunches. So he can go off and hit like 5-6 home runs over the next 10 days. I mean, we've seen that before quite often from him. Let's say he has another one of those runs soon. 23 now, he does something like that. If that ends up happening, he'll finish in home runs where he finishes virtually every year. I mean, here's the numbers since 2014. 32 home runs in 2014, 31 in 2015, 32 in 16, 32 in 17, and last year was a little down, 25. But if he has one more little home run streak in him this year, he'll just end up being where he normally is. And again, don't take this literally, because it's not literally what happens. But when he was once on pace to hit a career high in home runs by a long shot, it almost felt like he, quote unquote, used up a lot of his normal 32 home runs early in the season. I know that doesn't make any sense, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, there's a solid possibility that he, with the way the ball is juiced this year, and there's still almost 40 games left. There's a good shot that he could still get this, but he's going to have to catch fire and really have a sustained home run streak.
And even despite all that, he's batting in the 280s. His on base is 390 something. His slugging is over 500. His OPS is in like the upper 800s. So he's still hitting very well.
Absolutely, and I'm not taking that away. It's I just need him to hit home runs.
Yeah, we'd like to see a little more power again. I agree.
Especially with how bad the offense has been on the road. He's one of the guys that's going to have to carry this Cubs offense.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a key cog in the offense, and what's kind of funny is that the Cubs were once kind of on pace to just shatter home run records for them. And I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to hit a lot of home runs, but you've seen a number of your big boppers kind of slow down a little bit. Rizzo, one of them. Bryant slowed down a little bit, but he's kind of found that power streak again. Javi Baez is kind of, he's been on a bit of a slump for a while now. He's been slowing down a bit, especially in the power department. So you've just kind of seen things fluctuate up and down, and Wilson Contreras was on pace to just shatter his home run total, but now he's hurt.
And that's the thing, is I think we were all nervous about Wilson Contreras having that going so well offensively and being so important defensively, and the history of the hamstrings, that coming up on an injury.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I think about.
And I haven't heard anything else from about him, so I don't know how that injury is coming along.
I almost feel like no news is good news right now.
Maybe I'm always of no news is no news, and I'm still going to worry until I hear good news.
Oh, sure. I mean, that's natural. I felt like if there was something more complicated, we would have heard about it.
You hope.
You hope. Yeah, you hope. Man, you're trying to bring me down, man. Trying to be positive here, and you're all, he's dead. He's not coming back.
That's what I do.
Just pulling your leg. But no, I definitely see why one would be worried because there has been a history of hamstring issues. We saw it in 2017, and it was virtually around the same time in 2017 he had that hamstring injury as this one.
Yeah, I guess it would have been right around this time.
It was early August.
Yeah, so you hope that he comes back and he's, the concern is he's going to be ginger when he comes back, and you don't have the same guy.
At least we can say that Caratini and Lucroy has done a pretty good job holding down the fort.
Oh, absolutely. But I think if you're going to have a chance to beat a Dodgers or the Braves, you're going to need a healthy Contreras.
No question. No question. I have a question for you.
Yes.
Going back to that Phillies game, the Bryce Harper walk-off grand slam. To me, no question the worst loss in the Joe Madden era.
Without actually digging in and thinking about it, knee-jerk reaction, probably.
I did an article for Cubby's Crib looking at the worst losses of the Joe Madden era. There's a lot of bad ones, but I don't think you can beat that one. Looking back at a lot of them. You want me to read you the other ones I included?
Yes, I saw the article and I retweeted it. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, though. So go ahead.
Okay, so let me just pull it up real quick. Some you may have kind of forgotten about, but once I remind you again, you'll be like, oh yeah, that one. So the first one I listed, this was back in 2015. It was the Johnny Peralta game.
Okay.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
That was one of them. Next, let's see. Sorry, it's taking a while to load. Okay, so last year, when they were up 6-4 in the ninth in St. Louis, it was like early May, and Brandon Morrow blew the save, and Colton Wong hit the walk-off home run.
Oh, yeah. These are games that I had blocked out of my mind, and you're bringing them right back into the forefront.
Yep, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm here for. Next, I had the one just a few months ago against the Pirates in Pittsburgh, the dropped fly ball, the Addison Russell throwing home thing.
Yeah.
Number 2 was also just recently. It was the Keston Hero walk-off game off Craig Kimbrell.
Yeah. That's a bad one.
And then for honorable mentions, these don't count as like, oh, it's the list. It's just some honorable mentions. A few I included were the Brett Gardner game in 2017. You remember that one?
I'm trying to remember that one.
So it was Cubs-Yankees, Wrigley Field. Cubs were up 2-0 in the ninth. They were one strike away from winning, and Brett Gardner hits a go-ahead 3-run home run into the corner.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you remember that one. Another one I included was the game before the Hero walk-off when they blew it in the eighth. Ben Gamel, go-ahead single off Strope.
Yeah.
I included that one. Let's see. I think I included... It was this year, not opening day, but like the last game of that series when they lost on a wild pitch.
Oh, yeah.
And there are others, but those are the ones I wanted to mention. Out of all of those, though, I still think that Bryce Harper walk-off was the worst.
It really, for me, it was bad on so many levels because of the team that it was against, the player who did it, the situation you were in, and it all just, culminated into a absolute awful, gut-wrenching loss.
See, whenever a Chicago team loses to a Philadelphia team, I just picture you like just shaking and twitching violently and then just opening your mouth and a huge just waterfall of vomit comes out.
And then it also ends up in me deleting people off Facebook.
Yeah, I would imagine so. The other thing I wanted to point out about that game, in my opinion, I'm going to go a step further. I don't think that was just the worst loss of the Madden era. I think that was the worst regular season loss for the Cubs in like the past decade. Because think about it. There were some bad losses, very bad, awful losses before the Madden era. But most of those teams weren't contenders anyway.
Yeah, it's true. And it's crazy when you talk to sports fans, they know the situation that the Cubs are in, where they just really just can't play well on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk to people that are not fans or just casual fans, and they're like, man, the Cubs are really having a tough season this year, aren't they? I'm like, they're in first place. And they just look at you in shock.
Yeah, it's such an odd season. It really is. What makes everything so frustrating is that that if you could have just converted some of those awful losses into wins, you would have a very nice lead in this division. Every team in the NL Central has a lot of big holes.
Oh, it's absolutely true. I mean, this is not a Cubs being good enough to hold off the other teams. It's being what we thought was going to be the toughest division in baseball is just three decent, equally decent teams.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not competitive in like here's a battle of 99 plus win teams like in the NL Central in 2015 when the Cardinals won 100 games, the Pirates won 98, and the Cubs won 97.
Yeah, this is teams that are flawed, but these should be teams that are fighting it out for a wild card, not three teams fighting it out for the division lead.
Yeah, exactly.
So not bad teams, but not the upper echelon.
No, I mean, you look at the other division leaders in baseball. Keep in mind that the Nationals and the Indians have better records than the Cubs, and they spent much of the season sub 500.
Yeah. It's crazy that the Cubs have played this bad on the road and are still tied for first place. It's insane to think that way.
It really is. It really is.
And they've got this game today that we're recording this on Sunday night, and it's looking like they're going to win this one.
Don't do it. Don't.
But they're up by 7 runs. No, that's a fact. I'm not saying anything else. They're up by 7 runs as we're speaking, and this so far has been one of the few bright spots of this road trip.
Yeah, there's not going to be many of them, but hopefully this is one. I got to say, it was a miracle that the Cubs won yesterday's game. It's a miracle that the Pirates did not know how to function with runners in scoring position.
No, they really didn't. And, yesterday, Lester, on paper, Lester didn't have a bad game. 6 innings, no earned runs, 4 hits, but he was in trouble a couple of times.
To be fair, a number of that was because of his defense.
That's true. But he that was one of those games we talk about where he grinded things out.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He didn't fool a lot of batters. I mean, he got some lucky outs. Like, he got some line drive outs right to people on the infield. He got, I think it was when it was bases loaded, nobody out. The first batter with the bases loaded, nobody out, lined right to Castellanos, who was in enough where the runner didn't test him. That changed that whole inning.
Yeah. And honestly, after that awful gut-wrenching loss to the last game of the Philly series, to lose a game in Pittsburgh where Kyle Hendricks goes 7 innings and gives up 3 hits, you lose that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's tough. That's tough. And I honestly was worried that those things were going to start spiraling from that point.
Oh, me too.
Because you just hear the team going, and they gutted one out yesterday, and then today the offense is showing up. Regardless of what the final outcome is, the offense showed up.
And Hayward struck out right when you said that, so be quiet.
And then there's the one game that was absolutely embarrassing. And to say that the last game of the Philly series was the worst of the Joe Madden era, the game before that, the Cubs just got, like, I wanted to invoke the mercy rule.
Yeah, wasn't it 10-0 by the third inning?
Yeah.
I turned it off long before that.
And here's the thing is, whenever somebody that played for the Cubs for even 5 minutes plays the Cubs again, they are unstoppable. They are just awesome and makes you go, man, I wish we still had them. When we have a guy who spent a long time and a good chunk of his career with a team and they let him go and he's facing him again, he poops the bed. Why couldn't Cole Hamels been like gone, a complete game shutout, no hitter, and rubbed it in Philly's faces and the Cubs win? No, he just has one of his worst starts of his career.
Yeah. I don't think he's 100%.
I don't either.
He was your best starter before he got hurt. There's you can tell from the second he threw 2-3 pitches, he wasn't right. You could tell.
And there's like a roughly 40 games left in this season. And if I told you with like roughly 40 games left in the season that you, Darvish, and Jose Quintana are your 2 best pitchers, are you feeling good or are you feeling bad about that? And that's all the information you have.
Well, if I hear you, Darvish, is one of our best pitchers, I'm saying, hell yeah, we finally got the guy we signed. With Quintana, I'd say, yeah, he's clearly what we wanted in him, but what does that say about the other guys? It would raise some questions. Let's just say that.
I think that's the boat I'm in. If somebody gave me that was the only information is, hey, at the start of the season, hey, Darvish and Quintana are going to be your 2 best pitchers with 40 games left, I'm not going, yeah, because I'm really confident that the other 3 are good too, and we just are crushing it. My question is, is everybody healthy? Which guy came off the rails? I have a lot of questions about everybody else. Is it because process of elimination that they're the best, or are they just both having outstanding runs?
Right. Yeah. I'd say explain more to me. I'd want more information. Now, if somebody said John Lester, Cole Hamels, Kyle Hendricks are your best guys, well, then I'd say, okay, I'm not surprised. Isn't that, how it's been for a long time?
Right. And so in this rough week, in this rough road stand, which I think what were you saying would be the only, the cutoff for an acceptable road stand for you?
It was like 5-4.
I was fine with 5-5 because and 10 games.
Oh, it was 10 games.
Split.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, you know what? If you can do that, and the best they can do now is 4-6.
Yeah, that's when you should have at least 2 more wins right now on this trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you hung on in Philly and you hung on in that first game against the Pirates, you can get over that blowout loss in Philly. You can get over one of those blowout losses in Cincinnati. But, if you split in a 4-game series against a team that's giving you headaches, you salvage one in Philly, and then you sweep the Pirates, you take that.
Right, absolutely. And, things just didn't work out that way. And yeah, I think the best thing you can do at this point is hold this lead that you have right now and come back home and try to right the ship again and build a cushion lead in your division.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But in this tough 10 game stand, what would be the one, the best moment that stood out to you?
I'd say the Chris Bryant home run.
And it's in the air to left field, and the Cubs have taken the lead. Unbelievable. Lorenzen has not retired a batter in this series. Not one. We're back in a moment.
You mean that one?
Yes, my boy Tom Brenneman.
Oh my God. When I heard that, I could not stop laughing. I couldn't stop laughing because it couldn't happen to a better guy. And he was so mad.
And what's funny is, like, that was the clip that was going around. Like, I don't even remember what Pat or Len said during that time, during that home run. When I remember that home run, all I can think about was Tom Brenneman's call.
Oh yeah. And I would love to just, in the post game or in the beat room, hear what other people are saying about that, because he really lost his cool.
And Tom Brenneman, over the past few years, has been known to do that, especially when they're playing the Cubs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's, it's weird because, I don't know, to be a Cincinnati homer, anti-Cub homer.
Well, remember, he used to be a Cubs announcer, and then they let him go.
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder if there's a little bitterness there.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Meh.
And, I think Tom Brenneman had a very good career as a broadcaster. I think in the early 2000s, when he was on Fox doing all the big baseball games, football games, I thought he was really good. It's just he's one of those announcers that is quote unquote past their announcing prime. Now they're just coming off as one of those guys that just comes off as just kind of a get off my lawn, shaking fists in the air type guy.
Yeah, it's funny because he's not that old.
No, he's not. I mean, his father is still announcing.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because you ever gone down a rabbit hole on YouTube?
Oh, I do it like every night.
Yeah. So I ended up watching, the Kirk Gibson, fist pump home run in the World Series off Dennis Eckersley.
Mm-hmm.
And just listening to Vin Scully call that, and I'm like, that guy was 200 years old then,
mm-hmm.
and he was still at the top of his game. And then you hear a guy like Tom Brenneman, who's not that old, and he's just gone downhill already. It's weird.
Yeah, he's only 55, Tom Brenneman.
Yeah. And, Vin Scully was probably 80 at that point.
But you can definitely agree that when Brenneman was in his prime, he was much better, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there was a time that he was a very good announcer.
He was my favorite national announcer as a kid.
And it just, I don't know. I don't know what happened at a certain point. Like,
I think when you've done it for so long, you kind of get that sense of entitlement where you can do or say whatever you want and no one's going to really care. Like in terms of who employs you, you just kind of develop that, well, I've been doing this forever. I can say what I want. I can do what I want, whatever. I'm going to express my frustration the way I do, yada, yada. Do you think that has anything to do with it? You think it's at least a theory?
You mean the Hawk Harrelson?
Well, that goes for Hawk. That goes for his father, Marty Brenneman. And Marty Brenneman is a fantastic announcer. Fantastic. There's a reason he's in the Hall of Fame. But, the last decade or so since being elected to the Hall of Fame, he's always been a guy that spoke his mind, and I can respect that. But, the last few years, it's just kind of been like, all I hear is just a grumpy old man. Though he's meddled out in his final season, I'll say that.
Yeah, but Hawk Harrelson had the same thing, just very entitled and opinionated. And
I always felt, though, he was always kind of like that.
It got worse.
Oh, sure.
I mean, in his later years, just so much more vocal about it. And maybe that's just, recency bias, but when he broadcast with Wimpy, it was clearly he was a homer, but it seemed more fun, I guess, and less get off my lawn.
Well, with Wimpy, he was able to, I don't know, how do you describe it? I think he was a lot looser around Wimpy, and he felt like he could just kind of relax around Wimpy, where when he was with Steve Stone, and I think Steve Stone's great, but I mean, let's face it, I think Steve Stone thinks pretty highly of himself. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but you can agree, right?
Oh, absolutely. Steve Stone, I mean, if he was a South Park character, he'd be the one bending over and sniffing his farts. And he's also gotten a little bit of, he's also got a little bit of get off my lawn starting in on him too over the last couple of years. So when you would put two get off my lawn guys together, man, they're just amplifying it.
And look, if I had to choose who to have, Hawk or Stone, I'd go with Stone. I mean, I still think when it comes to in-game analysis, like the approach of how to play the game, I don't think anyone explains it better than Steve Stone. But when you have a personality like him and Hawk Harrelson, I just thought there was always a recipe for disaster. And now with Benetti, he can kind of be a little looser around Benetti. I think they can have a legitimate discussion without insulting each other's intelligence. Hawk and Stone couldn't do that with each other.
Yeah, and you're right. Steve Stone is a very smart baseball man, explains things very well. I think Benetti is a good partner for him, but he's got some entitlement issues, I think, and
he's always been that way, even with the Cubs.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's what led to him no longer being with the Cubs. Yeah. But as he's gotten older, and it didn't help that it was basically him and Hawk were soundboarding off each other, that they both just got more crotchety.
Yeah,
I think Jason Benetti has toned him down a little bit.
I think so.
But Steve Stone is still a very smart baseball man, and he's also got the historic context because he played, and some of the guys he played with were just fantastic.
He was a Cy Young winner.
Yep. So, the story, he's able to provide the stories. He's able to provide the analysis. He's able to explain it to people. So he's definitely a resource. It just he's the one that limits him as far as I guess his being recognized as a top announcer in the national circle. I think he's the one that keeps limits his own self.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And going back to Tom Brenneman, another.
It's in the air to left field, and the Cubs have taken the lead. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Lorenzen has not retired a batter in this series. Not one. We're back in a moment.
We're going to keep this one a while. It's going to be great.
Yeah, this is a keeper.
But when I think of Tom Brenneman also, I think, part of the way he's been announcing in recent years, I can't help but wonder if just part of it is he's tired of calling a losing team. And I can't say I necessarily blame him, but the Reds haven't been to the playoffs since 2013. They haven't had a winning season since. And, I just think that it may be getting to him a little bit. I don't know. I mean, because he's always seemed to be the guy that really gets into what he's doing. Even if he's not shouting like a madman, he's always been into it when he announces a game. And I just can't help but wonder if part of it is just frustration with that.
That's a possibility. That's a possibility.
Because I just think for me, I can't just completely diss Tom Brenneman because I do know he once was a very good announcer. And I've heard he's a super nice guy with the fans. It's kind of funny listening to him when he's all, crotchety, enough already. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah, he's got some Hawk Harrelson in him.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully he never reaches that level. Hey, speaking of announcing, did you hear the guest announcers for the White Sox the past few nights?
Oh, I didn't hear it. It was God, who was it?
Bill Walton.
Bill Walton. Yeah. Why in the world would you want Bill Walton? He's a terrible announcer for basketball. Why is he gonna? Did you hear any of it?
I did, and all this stuff was kooky crazy, but it was kind of entertaining. It was fun, I should say. You don't actually listen to it to make sense, but what I think is nice, I can at least say, and this is not something I'd want them to do very often, because I think at the end of the day, you want a baseball broadcast to be intelligent and, actually make sense. But at least the Sox have been putting more and more personality into their broadcasts. It started with Jason Benetti, who has added as much personality as you can ask for from an announcer like him, and kind of going a step further. Again, this is a one-time thing, so you can let the craziness slide, I think, for one game, because the other two, the guy they had yesterday who was on The Office, he's actually a big baseball fan, and he seemed like he knew what he was talking about. Professional status, no, but he knew what he was talking about. So I think it was for a one-time thing.
Yeah, it's he's Bill Walton is a guy that it should just be on all of the anti-drug ads. Drugs are bad.
My one White Sox fan friend was messaging me, and he says, dude, Bill Walton thinks literally every ball hit in the air, including pop-ups, is a home run. I think that's funny.
So, while we're on announcers, do Len and JD come back?
I hope. I really do.
I don't know if they will.
Didn't they say they were in works with re-signing him or whatever? I don't really know what's going on, to be honest.
Well, we don't know what's going on with the manager. We don't know what's going on with the announcers, and I mean with the new TV deal, I wouldn't be shocked if they're going to try to move on.
I could see JD moving on. I don't know. Len's been here so long. I feel like he'd want to stay.
Yeah, I think Len Casper probably stays, but yeah, you're probably right. If any of them's going to go, it's going to be Deshays.
Which is too bad because I like him. But yeah, I could definitely see him going elsewhere.
And, I think the Cubs, they want, I mean, this is speculation here. I think they want just a really iconic guy. They want a Jack Brickhouse. They want a Harry Carey. They want a Ron Santo. They want somebody like that. And I have no issues with Len and JD, but they are not, they're not any of those three names.
The thing is, though, broadcasting has evolved so much since then. That crazy drunk uncle being your legendary announcer, that's not going to fly this day and age. You're not going to get one of those types of people anymore.
No, but that type of just iconic guy.
But where are you going to find that? That's my question.
I don't know, honestly.
I'm Tom Brannaman. I'm now calling the Cubs again.
Wayne Mesmer.
He'd actually probably be decent, but I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to get a national person because the Cubs job's iconic.
I'm Joe Buck. I'm your new announcer.
That would be the quickest way to get me to be a White Sox fan.
Could you imagine how the fans would react if Joe Buck was hired to be their announcer?
That would be awesome if the Cubs just announced that as like a April Fool's type thing.
Oh my God, that would be great. I just want to see everyone melting down.
People would lose their minds.
And the picture they use on the television is that one picture they have of him mid-blink where he just looks like he's going, if you know which picture I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, Len's been here since 2005.
Yeah, he's been here a very long time.
Yeah. I like the radio team.
Oh, Pat Hughes is my favorite.
Pat is great, and I love Ron Coomer because, like, Pat needs a Ron. Like, that's what makes them great because either one of them by themselves, like, I feel Steve Stone could do everything by himself.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you'll find, and I love Pat and I love Ron. They need each other. They're like Laurel and Hardy. You need the other one, and the two of them, the synergy they have is fantastic. I love, a lot of times I listen to the games just on the radio and just catch highlights later and things like that. Or I listen to it, with the radio on and the TV on silent because I really like the two of them.
Oh yeah, I was thinking the other day, actually, I was talking to somebody and I was saying, I gotta tell you how much Ron Coomer has grown on me over the years.
And do you know who's done a really good job? Is Zach Zaidman in the substitute role. I'm not saying he's great. I'm just saying that for stepping into this, I mean, he was a football guy that came over, and I think he's like, he does the job. He's not going to be, you're not going to hand him the reins, like, not that kind of guy, but to be the fill-in, I think he's done a pretty good job.
I think he's great on the post game. He hosts the post game show very, very well. And I give him a lot of credit for doing what he's done because he came over from football, which that move never made any sense because I thought Mark Grody was the perfect guy for baseball.
And Mark Grody sucks with the football stuff.
Right.
Oh, he drives me crazy.
And I don't get it. Do you remember how good Grody was on the Cubs broadcast? He was fantastic.
And I wonder if this was like the two of them wanted to change this, let's change it up, because that like otherwise it didn't make sense. Because I thought Zach Zaidman was great on talking football, talking Bears.
Absolutely, he was my favorite Bears beat.
He was better than on the radio than any of the other beat writers, better than Brad Biggs, better than any of those other ones.
Absolutely.
And Mark Grody talking football, it makes me want to smash myself in the face with something blunt.
You can tell he's kind of like just trying to talk.
He doesn't
without having the inside knowledge that like Zaidman had.
Yeah, he just like he's like a fan, like a casual fan talking. He doesn't understand it like the beat writers do.
Yeah, so I never understood that because Grody was so good with baseball and Zaidman was so good with football. But, whatever. You know who I actually really miss on the radio for the Cubs telecasts or the radio cast is Surratt.
Oh, I mean, it's been some years now that Surratt's been out.
Yeah, because he's now the Boston Bruins radio guy.
Yeah, I saw that. And man, what it been like 5 years maybe that he's been out?
Yeah, it's been a while, but I loved listening to him.
What about Dan Plesac?
All I remember from him is the Big Blue Train. Remember we had that conductor hat?
Oh, yeah.
I also kind of miss Todd Hollandsworth. I liked Todd Hollandsworth.
I thought you were going to say Joe Carter.
No. No. You know who I miss on the national telecast, though, for ESPN? John Miller. John Miller was one of my favorites.
Yeah, it was good. Man, top. Yeah, maybe the Cubs can make a run for a certain favorite Sunday night baseball host or announcer to be our full-time guy.
You're not talking about A-Rod, are you?
Oh my God. He's the worst. And it's funny because when he did like the pre and post game stuff with Pete Rose and Frank Thomas, I liked him.
He was good. He was really good.
I thought the three of them were good. And when you put him in game, it's terrible. It's terrible.
In-game isn't for everybody. I just don't think A-Rod should... I think A-Rod should go back to analysis pre- and post-game. Because I was actually blown away by how good he was in 2016 on Fox pre-game, post-game.
There's people out there that hated that with Pete Rose, Frank Thomas, and A-Rod. And I thought
it was good.
I don't see it. I thought they were insightful. Just between the amount of experience and talent that the three of those guys have and knowledge about baseball. And I think my favorite moment ever was they were like teasing going back to their studio, and they just cut into the three of them, and Pete Rose is teaching the two of them like how he would switch, or like he would change up how he would hold the bat depending on the count.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you've got a guy teaching Frank Thomas and A-Rod about how to hold the bat. And the two of them are just like, they don't know the cameras on them, and they're just absolutely just like glued to what he's teaching them. Like they genuinely want to learn this. I'm like, this is crazy. Like that just really stuck out to me.
After their careers were over, their playing careers.
Yeah, after they were all, after Frank Thomas is in the Hall of Fame, and A-Rod is long retired, they're still looking at this guy as, you know, like a teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really cool. You know what? You know what's kind of funny? Somebody mentioned the other day the time when A-Rod said there was trouble in the clubhouse for the Cubs with Yu Darvish. Do you remember that?
I don't.
And Madden was pretty pissed about that.
Oh yeah. I remember that now.
Well, it's just funny how so many false narratives can come out in game, but like pre-post game, that everything was legit.
Yeah, I like. I don't know if you listen to Mac and Parkins.
I catch them when I drive home from work, so around 5:00.
Like, I love the one that the clip they always play with A-Rod, and he's like, speaking of iPads, and he had nothing. Nobody was talking about iPads, and they figured out that it's because he has all these stats on his iPad. So he was like talking about a stat, but he was like, speaking of iPads, and they run that clip all the time. It's hilarious because it's like the epitome of what the hell are you talking about, A-Rod?
Yeah, I don't. I always said that 3 people in one broadcast booth is just too much.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Now, somebody mentioned as a possible like new play-by-play guy for the Cubs, they mentioned Matt Vasgersian. I like Matt Vasgersian, but I would not want him to be my everyday announcer, if that makes sense.
I don't know him.
The guy who does the play-by-play on ESPN.
Oh, okay. I mean,
he's good, but would you really want him to be your day-by-day broadcaster? I don't think I would.
No. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm okay if they stand pat on things. It's just they don't have, like, we should have the best announcers in town on the north side. And
I think they have pretty good ones right now.
And I'm not saying they're bad. I think, I think Jason Benetti and Steve Stone are really good.
Yeah, Jason Benetti's fantastic.
And I'm looking here, and they're ranking the top broadcast teams, and the Cubs they have is 22nd.
Really? They've always been ranked top 10, I've always seen, but those are older lists.
Yeah, so the teams below them are the Brewers with Brian Anderson and Bill Schroeder, the Dodgers with Joe Davis, and other people that aren't Vin Scully.
That's all I have to say is not Vin Scully.
Yeah, Vin Scully was great.
Oh, he is like my favorite announcer ever.
Yeah. Toronto with Buck Martinez and Pat Tabler. The Rangers with Dave Raymond and CJ Nitkowski. Washington with Bob Carpenter and FP Santangelo. Atlanta with Chip Carey, Joe Simpson, and Tom Glavine. Detroit with Mario Impemba and Rod Allen.
Well, those guys are gone now, I think.
Tampa with Dwayne Statz and Brian Anderson.
Dwayne Statz is good. Former Cubs announcer.
They have number 1 is the Mets with Gary Cohen, Keith Hernandez, and Ron Darling.
That is a very, very good booth.
2, they have the Astros with Todd Kalis and Jeff Blum. 3, Baltimore with Gary Thorne and Jim Palmer.
Love Gary Thorne.
4, Oakland with Ray Foss and Glenn Cooper. 5, the Giants with Mike Krukow, Dwayne Cooper, John Miller, and Dave Fleming.
Love those guys.
Pittsburgh with Greg Brown and Bob Walk.
Oh, no.
Miami with Rich Waltz and Todd Hollinsworth. St. Louis with Dan McLaughlin, Al Hrabosky, Ricky Horton, Tim McCarver, and Jim Edmonds.
Tim McCarver.
I hate Tim McCarver. So, yeah, they have White Sox at 12. You know who's another get off my lawn guy? I'm just looking through this list. Dennis Eckersley.
Yeah.
He's gotten to be. Yeah. But I mean, back to real baseball stuff. There's roughly 40 games left. If the season were to end right now, the Cubs would be in a familiar spot. They would be playing a one-game playoff to see who wins the division and who has to go to the wild card game.
I don't want to do that again.
I do not. So right now, the Dodgers would have the 1 seed, Braves the 2 seed. The Cubs and the Cardinals are tied for the division, and then the loser, whoever doesn't win the division, would be the wild card versus the Nationals. And then the winner of that game, so whoever lost the play-in game and that won the wild card game would go on to face the Dodgers. Just not the place to be.
No.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, that is just not where you want to be. As much as you don't want to play the Braves because they're good, you got a better shot at beating the Braves.
I see. If the Cubs and Braves played each other in a playoff series, I'd actually feel pretty good about the Braves or beating the Braves. Not like
that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you have to play either the Dodgers or the Braves, you're picking the Braves every time. And then the American League is you've got Yankees, best record, Astros, Twins. And then if the wild card were today, it would be the Indians and the Rays. Cubs helped knock Oakland out of the wild card for the time being.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So what are we looking forward for the Cubs after this road trip?
You mean what are we looking at record-wise?
No. Like what are we expecting out of them going forward? We have 40 games left. How are they responding to this?
I don't know, because they'll have stretches where they look great. They'll have stretches where they look awful. I just think it's going to be another roller coaster.
Because we don't really have. I mean, this is the remaining schedule here for the next foreseeable future is 3 against the Giants, which they're playing really well. 3 against the Nationals, who are the wild card team right now.
That's kind of a big series.
3 against the Mets, who are playing well. And then 2 against the Brewers, 1 against why does the schedule do this? It's weird. So you got then the Brewers, and then 2 against Seattle, then 4 more against the Brewers. That's your remaining schedule, through mid-September.
Well, you got a lot of road games in the division. Yep, it's gonna make or break it.
And there's not, other than Seattle, those are all tough games.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. So that's why I don't know what to expect.
So I don't know either. And St. Louis is, like today they eked one out. They've played not well recently. They've played down to the Cubs level. So somebody's got to step up and win this. We talked before. We thought somebody would rise up and take this, not by a lot, but at least go. But the way it's been going is the Cubs take a little bit of a lead and then fall back. Somebody catches up to them, and then they start playing like crap. And then the Cubs build a couple game lead and fall back. It's frustrating. It's a frustrating division to watch.
Well, like I said, what's most frustrating is that you could easily have a big lead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you were able to play halfway decent on the road, you would have a pretty big lead in this division.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All you had to do was play 500 on the road.
Yeah. I mean, at least you have Craig Kimbrell back.
Yeah, that's important. So Joe's really annoying me right now. Quintana was only in low 90s pitches, and he's doing that bull crap again. Yeah, I think I'm gonna pull him. I'm sorry, that just really annoys me. But Jose Quintana, in his last 4 starts, has given up 4 total earned runs. That's 26 innings, 4 earned runs, 33 strikeouts, 1 walk.
That's solid work there,
Yeah,
to say the least.
yeah. Good stuff.
So I feel like we should say something about the White Sox. McCann had 2 grand slams this week.
Yeah, he did.
That's good to see. It's still a shame that Luis Robert is not on the big squad.
No, he continues to destroy it in AAA.
I don't understand. I don't understand that move. I think it's kind of ridiculous. I
think it's all contract. It's all about that.
Which is the thing is I think that's going to cause a strike when the collective bargaining agreement is up.
I'm not the only one who thinks that. I'll tell you that much.
I think that is going to be, and it's not going to be going forward too. It's going to be the union is going to be pissed, and it's going to be kind of punitive where they go backwards and be like, look what you did to these players. Look what you did to these guys. And they have the list of guys that should have been up, and they were held down for contract negotiation or contract type situations and years of control. And they're totally going to talk Luis Robert. They're totally going to talk Chris Bryant. And rightfully so. Rightfully so.
Oh, yeah, there's no question.
And yeah, Luis Robert in triple A so far, as this is his slash line. 303, 357, 606 with a 962 OPS. And his totals in the minor leagues, so all 3 levels, he played in single A, double A, and triple A. His combined slash line is 334, 386, 614 with a even 1,000 OPS.
That's pretty good.
With 25 home runs, 78 RBIs. And yeah, that's ridiculous. Like that, why is that guy not up?
Well, hopefully soon we'll see it.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I have pretty much said my piece.
All right, so that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please make sure you hit subscribe, however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or the TuneIn app, or any other way you listen to podcasts. Follow us on social media at ShyFamPat1, at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Please share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on the plains. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.